All right, it's work in progress number 2 on the Alpha 3 Batman offered by Mark Dmello. I'm going to show you an easier way of getting the cape on with the hand in this video, and also the first step before I do any priming. So as you can see, I have it on right now. I'm going to show you from the back of the statue, because I think it will, to try to show you how to get it on without scratching paint. So let's see if we can do this and you guys can see what I'm doing. So basically the trick is to put the hand in the cape and then put it onto the body. So I'm going to take it all off real quick. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is take the left hand and put it in the cape. And it fits in this groove really nicely. It's molded very nicely to that groove. Okay. So then what you're going to do is come from the back of the statue like this, trying to avoid hitting anything, and I may hit something because I'm doing this from a weird angle. You're going to come in, you're going to kind of tilt it. Again, I'm at a weird angle. I did this the other day without touching it, without scratching anything. And then you're going to rotate it into position. So that probably wasn't the best demonstration because I was bumping and hitting things, but again, it's from a weird angle. So let's see if I can do it again and show you better that this does work, because I was playing with this the other night, because in the first video, if this thing would have been painted, I would have scratched it all to hell. So again, so I got the hand in the cape. You can basically hold that in place, and then you're going to rotate it into place just like that. So that seems to be the best way to get that in there, and then once it's in there you can kind of adjust it a little bit to get the fit better. But there we go, and now it's in. So put the hand on the cape first, kind of come in from the right side of the statue if you're at the back, or the left side if you're facing the... It's easier to do it when you're facing the statue in the front. I'm doing a weird angle so I can show you on video. I'll try to do it again coming this way. So let's see if I can do it from the front view. It's gonna be hard because I have to reach so far to avoid the camera, but let's try it. Come here. Okay. So let's just take it off. I'm not gonna worry. I'm not gonna pretend like this thing's painted. I'm just gonna take it off. Just like that. Okay. All right. So once again, I've got. Oops. I had the hand. I dropped it. There's no fingers on this one. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is you take the left hand and you're going to put it in the cape right in that crease right there, and you can see that it's molded really nicely to the wrinkles. Okay, so you've done that. So let me bring this in closer so you can see, so I can reach it actually. Hold on, bear with me. Okay, so now you have the hand on the cape where it goes, and that's molded very nicely. What you're going to do is, while you hold that kind of that hand in position, you're going to want to come from the left, if you're facing it, come in at an angle like this, and right now I have the arm going into the, or the hand going into the arm, and then you're going to rotate it down just like that. And now once it's on there, you can just very carefully kind of just get it all adjusted so it fits a little bit better. So right there. So right there, when I put that on, I didn't hit anything on the statue. I was able to rotate it on this way and get it on without bumping around. So that's how you do that. I'll pause, I'll get set up, and I'll show you the first step before I do any priming. All right, as you can tell, I'm not at my main work area, because I've got like 3 other projects going on. So I have this other table out that I'm going to kind of use this as prep work for the Batman. In the first video, I kind of went over the casting and how it looks. It looks good, and I think this pink, or this flesh color, is actually a primer from the factory but as you can tell, it still needs some love. So just going over the pieces, I'm going to just give everything a real light sanding. There's a couple things I won't give a light sanding, like Batman himself. I think he will prime up nicely. But like this hand, I've got a 3M superfine sanding sponge, and this is equivalent to like a 600 grit sandpaper. And this one's relatively used, so it's actually more like an 800. So I'm just gonna give this just everything a real light sanding. I'm not trying to smooth anything out. I just want to, you know, again, I'm not really sanding. I'm not putting really any pressure on this. But I kind of do this anyway. Even with the statues that are technically ready to paint, I give everything a real light sanding, because I don't want to get rid of that texture. So that's really it for that piece. Same goes for this piece. I'm not going to worry about the grappling gun, because that looks super clean. And actually this hand looks really good. I probably could get away without, actually I'll see a little piece of dirt in there. I'm just going to give this, again, a real light pass, just really just a wipe, not really even a sanding. What this does, it just kind of helps give your paint and primer something better to stick to. So, again, just a real light wipe. The cape will need the most work out of anything as far as like all that goes. Again, I don't want to sand because I don't want to get rid of all this really awesome texture that's been sculpted into this piece. So that's really it for that hand. For the head, you know, I got a little, hold on, let me get this light in a better position. There we go. For the head, like I got a little, you know, chip or whatever it is, and of this pink fleshy tone primer, whatever this is. So I'm just going to sand that. So this is some sort of factory primer or something, because I sanded through and there's the bare resin. Not sure if you're seeing that, but I'm not sure what that is. So basically anywhere that I see that it's kind of rubbed off, like back here they did a little putty work, I'm just going to give that a real light sanding. And until I get my primer on here, the gray primer, I won't know if there's really any additional work. But again, I'm just giving it a super light wipe. I sanded a little bit there because there was a chip in this fleshy tone, whatever it is. I wanted that a nice soft edge, so when I primed it would cover up. And that's really it for that. Let's see, let's look at this hand. I won't need to sand all these batterings and everything. These are actually really good. I looked at them last night. These won't need any work. They're not warped or anything. They're nice and flat, so I don't need to worry about heat treating those. Again, this hand, it's just got a little kind of wear and tear on it from, I'm going to darken this up just a little bit, just from shipping, you know. Oops, I went the wrong way. I want to darken it a little bit. There we go. I can see better. Yeah. So I'm just going to, again, just give it a real light wipe. This is a used 3M superfine sanding sponge. If this was brand new superfine, it'd be going right through this flesh colored whatever this is. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go through it. I just want to kind of give it a real light wipe. And I give everything a light sanding. I say this all the time. I say a lot of sanding. Sorry. So that looks pretty good. Again, this color, like for a primer, isn't really good because it doesn't show you anything. A gray primer is, sorry, I'm messing with my exposure. It seems a little bright. A gray primer is the best because it'll show you all your imperfections better. But I mean, that looks pretty good. There's a little bit kind of where this peachy stuff is kind of worn off on the knuckles, so I'm gonna give that a little light wipe because I want that soft edge of the paint. Like I said on Batman, I'm not gonna do anything on him. He looks really good. They even, when they did the putty work on the chest, they recreated the texture of the emblem. Same thing on here on the crotch. So he looks good. I'll have to prime him on the base because I have no way of holding him. I mean, he's really heavy. I'd have to make a custom stand for him, so I'll just put him on the base when I prime. Let's see, the eagle head. It looks pretty good. I got a little, It's not a chip in the resin, but when when the head fell off yesterday from my unboxing, that peachy stuff kind of got chipped a little bit. So again, I'm just gonna give that a light wipe and get that edge, or that paint edge, beveled and smooth. Just like that. Got a little bit down here. Okay. This looks pretty good for the most part. Like I said, until I get my primer on there, I won't know. And Mark tells me that these will be, he saw the video, the first video, and it tells me that when these go out, they'll all be in the gray primer. Now for these signs, all I'm going to do is I'm going to shave down these keys a little bit with a nice big file. And I'm going to try to see if I can get these to sit down more on the base. So I'm down here on the table. I got my file. I'm just going to try to take that down a little bit. I'm not a real fan of the Dremel. If I owned a belt sander, that'd be ideal, but I don't. I can just throw on the belt sander for a second. I just think these keys are too big, and that's why they're not sitting down on the base. So I'll do one and see if it works, and that's the case, and that's just what I'll do with the other ones. The resin these factories use is interesting. It smells like fiberglass, so I'm not, it's like the Nair and Hellboy. The resin smells like fiberglass. It's really hard. It's not like a soft resin. It's a good resin, so it's like whatever these statue companies use for it. It's different than most garage kits. All right, so I just shaved that a little bit. Let's see if it sits down there any better. Yeah. So already it's going to sit down there better. So I'm just going to keep kind of falling away on that, and then I'll come back. I'm going to pause real quick so you don't have to watch me sand for 10 minutes. Okay, so it just took me a few minutes, but I filed that key down, and now it's hard to see because my light's crappy right here, but the gap that I had yesterday from the sign on the wall is it's much better. I think it's acceptable, actually. I think it looks pretty good. So I'm going to do that to all those pieces so they'll sit down better. Now, as far as sanding goes, with the soft sponge, the cape, I am going to go in and do quite a bit because they've done a lot of kind of putty work on this thing. So I want to make sure that I get a really good smooth surface before I do any priming. So this is where I'll go in and I'll actually give this a good sanding, because I've got several layers of putty work and primer that they've done here. So I want to make sure that's all smoothed out. And I may have to do a couple rounds of priming and sanding to get this all smoothed out. So when you guys are paying $600, $700 for a kit from a factory, this is what you're paying for. You're paying for these guys to go in, do all this putty work, and do all this sanding that I'm doing. That's how they can deliver a primed kit for the most part ready to paint, because they got guys in the factories doing this. Like right here, this is, oh, there it is. It just flicked off. So that's what you're paying for. You're paying for these guys to go in there and do all that. Okay, so I think you get the idea. Stay on the cape, nice and smooth. Work on the keys for the signs so those sit flat. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to pause and I'll come back and show you the next step. Okay, well, I'm still sanding. I've been sanding on the cape for about an hour. And the reason it's taking so long is because as I run my hand over this, I feel rough spots. To the eye, it looks smooth, but like right here, I can feel roughness in the surface. So I'm going through and smoothing that out, because that will, if I don't sand that, that's going to show all the way through the final paint job. So yeah, this is one reason when you know, when I quote commission jobs, even though the statue's ready to paint, there still may be some work to be done. Not that this is by far not ready to paint, you know, being the prototype casting and everything. But even like on my first Captain America, I found a few little areas that I worked on. I didn't throw paint on it right away. I found a couple of mold lines that I wasn't happy with. I mean, you know, it's like, you know, I'm going to take the time to try to get it as good as I can. You know I need to get this one done relatively quick because it's the prototype, and they can't do anything until they have this in hand. They can't start production on the statues. But I want to make sure it looks as good as possible for Mark, so that way they can deliver a statue that you guys are going to like. And as I said before, by the time you guys see these videos, statues will be in production, and more. I don't know when Mark is going to plan on publishing this series of videos. That's up to him. I told him I would do them, and I would keep them private between me and him during the whole process, since you know he doesn't want to show other people what he's doing. But you know, it's between me and him as far as this goes. But so I don't know when he'll decide to release the series of videos. I hope he does, because that way you guys can see what kind of goes into this kind of thing, you know, getting a prototype ready for production. You know, I'm standing up here. So, yeah, so, you know, I'm running my hand over it, and it's like when I used to paint cars. You know, you look at a car and it may look really smooth, but you run your hand over the car and you can feel the low spots and the high spots and the dents and everything. And the trick with this area where they've done all this putty work is I need a feather edge all these spots. I want to make sure feather edge is where it's the transition from one layer to the next is so smooth you can't feel it or you can't sense it. If I run my hand over this, I can feel the transition between the putty and the primer. Well, that's going to show through the paint. So I need to make sure that when I run my hand over this, I don't feel that. Otherwise, it's just going to, you know, it doesn't matter how much primer or paint you put on, it's just going to you'll see it in the final job. So yeah, so I'm almost done with sanding the cape. Spend a little more time on the outside just because that's the part you're going to see mostly. But in here, I feel some roughness, so I want to get that out. I sanded the key down on the eagle's head, and it fits a lot better now. So I'm actually happy with that. That's how it's fitting. There's a little bit tiny of a gap, but it's different building material. You got brick, and then you got the stone of the eagle head. So the little bit of a gap I see, I think that would be kind of a natural thing you would see anyway of it being installed on a building. So I think it'll be okay. So like, yeah, so I sanded in there. So that's gone. There's a teeny tiny little bit of roughness right here. That's gone. And you can even hear the difference when I'm sanding. At least I can. I do a lot of things by ear. A lot of guys ask me, like when I'm painting, how do I know where I'm starting the center of a piece? I can hear the way the air sounds against the piece I'm painting. It makes a high-pitched noise and tells me exactly where I am on the piece before I start blowing paint. It's just something I learn and become accustomed to from painting cars and everything. So I think I'm pretty much done sanding the cape. This inside feels really good. I'm pretty happy with that. Like I said, I spent a little more time on the outside. Again, like all in this area right here, they did this putty work and stuff. I gotta make sure that all those transitions between the putty, I feel a little spot right there. Between all the putty and the primer and everything is very smooth. I don't feel anything in the surface. And more than likely when I prime this and after the primer dries, I may see some of this coming through the primer. I'll have to sand it again. So yeah, so when you guys hire painters, at least when I paint, I go through this process on every kit. Even on the ones that are theoretically ready to paint from the factory, I give everything a really light sanding. Because sometimes that primer isn't as smooth as I would like it to be. On Thor, even though Thor was primed, it wasn't perfectly smooth everywhere, so I want to give him a light sanding. This is a little longer because I'm having to deal with the putty work and stuff where they didn't go back and re-prime. So that's a little different, but still, this is the process. just before I get ready to prime. So I think that's it for this step. I'm pretty happy with how this is looking and how it feels. The next step will be in the bathtub. I'll see you in a second. Okay, with every kit, after I have done my light sanding, or if I'm doing a full-on like build where I have to start, you know, from, you know, like the Hellboy was a good example where I get a bare resin kit and I have to do all the pinning and all that stuff. The only difference with this kit is that there's really no pinning after that, some magnets, but as far as that, all those steps has already been done. I go through and I give everything a really good scrubbing with soft scrub with bleach. If it's a bare resin kit, I will give it a nice soak in Purple Power degreaser, which you can find at Walmart. You can also use, what is it, forgot, it's like a brake cleaner. Basically, you need an industrial degreaser. If I also put this into Purple Power and let it soak overnight, it would take all this factory skin colored, whatever this is. I don't want to take that off. I want to leave it. So if it was bare resin, I would give it a soak in Purple Power overnight and then do this step that I'm going to do right now. So I've got some Comet with bleach in it, or soft scrub. So this is real nice because it's a slightly abrasive, you know, cleaner for your bathtub, whatever, and it's got bleach in it. So this bottle's actually just about gone. So I can't get it out anymore. And I got a nice scrub brush here. So I'm just going to show you on these two parts. I think you get the idea, but I'm going to go through and give everything a really good scrubbing with this. So I like the Comet or soft scrub with bleach because the bleach is a cleaner, and with it being just slightly abrasive, you know, it's like sandpaper, it's kind of like toothpaste. Again, it's giving you another layer of kind of tooth to the piece for your primer stick. Tooth is like, you can think of it as a roughness, a level of roughness. Tooth is something, as you can say, it gives, if you want to get something tooth, you give it a little roughness for something to stick. So, you know, sanding and doing this gives it a little bit more tooth. So I get a really good scrubbing. And this guy's heavy, so my arm's already getting tired because this guy's so freaking heavy. I have just a little bit of water in the bottom of the tub here, not a lot. Get a little more. You know, I mean, just give it enough. You know, give it basically giving it a good bath. You get any oils or anything off of it. And again, this is a step I do with every kit. In fact, you know, again, those kits that are ready to paint, they get a bath in warm water and soft scrub with bleach. They get a scrub down. And a lot of times they'll get several baths in between steps. And they'll get a bath like this before I prime. And after I prime and do any sanding, they'll get another bath like this. The last step before I put any paint on a piece is actually, I want this step to be the very last step. It ensures me that I've got the cleanest possible surface before I start putting paint down. So what you don't want is you don't want any oils or fingerprints or anything on the surface, because you'll get fish eyes. And the fish eye, so when you put paint down, you get this little circle. That's the paint repelling from a contamination on the surface, and they call it a fish eye because it kind of looks like a fish eye. But that's usually from oils from your fingers, or mold release, or it's just a contamination on the surface. So he's pretty good. I'm gonna give him a rinse. want to make sure you get all that soft scrub off, because of course if it's on the surface, your paint's not going to stick. So let's see, a little bit in this belt here still. But so Batman's ready to go. So I'll just repeat this step for everything, all the other pieces, and let them dry. All right, so everything's been scrubbed and rinsed, and now it's just drying. So I want this air dry. If it's dry enough tonight, I'll start throwing some primer on. More likely it'll be tomorrow night. So I got quite a bit done on this tonight, just getting the sanding done and it washed. It's pretty good. The hard part will be the cape. It's just a big piece of resin. It's hard to maneuver. Probably have to paint that outside. The first thing I'll prime will be the base. I'll let that sit for a little while. That way I can cover it up with some saran wrap, put Batman on and prime him. All these other pieces will get clips or clamps to hold them while I paint or prime and stuff. So that's it for this video. The next work in progress, I will show priming. So thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.